Buenos dias. My name is Leo Messi, and today I will be showing you how to manual. Just kidding. It's me, Alfredo. What's happening, bro chachis? Today is Tuesday, and for today's installment, I'm gonna be showing you guys how to manual. Now, this isn't a trick specifically just for beginners, but I have a lot of intermediate friends that could use some of this advice, so make sure you listen. Now, all these tutorials and all these videos on my channel are free. All that I ask is that you smash that like button. So now, where to begin? Well, for starters, you're gonna wanna find a good empty parking lot, much like I have done so myself here. Ideally, you don't want there to be glass because that's something I ran into, so I'm gonna avoid that area. And you're gonna wanna make sure there's actually not a lot of cars around or people that can distract you, because this trick is not the most difficult, but it might be a little mentally straining. So you're gonna wanna really focus on this. So you're gonna wanna have a clear mind when you're trying this. I did my research and I watched a couple other tutorials on here. And one of my favorites has been Adam LZ's.
All right, so one of the first things you guys want to know is how to get comfortable flipping back. Because if you don't know how to flip back, oh my God.
Shout out to your boy. And in Adam LZ's tutorial, he starts off by showing you guys how to bail. And I do recommend this technique for anybody that's learning this trick. Now, the manuals is one of the most fundamental tricks in BMX. It helps you understand your balance point, which we're gonna go over. It helps you link tricks, so you can do grind to manual to grind. And it helps you understand how to get more speed out of certain things. So say you're gonna go into a roller, if you manual before it, it'll actually let you carry your speed up and over either the roller, into a wedge, a bank, or a quarter pipe. Now, the prerequisites for this trick are essentially that you own a bike and that you are comfortable with the idea of potentially falling off the back. And that's what Adam LZ addressed. So let me show you how that happens. All it is that you have leaned too far back and it's gonna feel like you're gonna want a backflip. We call that looping out, and all that is happening is that you've leaned too far back or you've pulled on your handlebars too far back, and now it feels like you're gonna essentially do a backflip. And if you don't bail off the bike, you will fall back and hit your head. So if you're under the age of 18, I do recommend wearing a helmet, but essentially all that's happening is that your front end is getting too high off the ground. So all you really have to do is essentially just step off. But if you have pegs, be careful. When you do so, you wanna make sure you kind of open your feet up a little bit so that you don't snag your peg on the way off the bike. So let me show you a couple examples. All right, so you're about to loop out. Quick and easy bail. There's nothing much to it. If you actually don't bail, you will essentially just stay on the pedals and just fall back and again, smack your head. You don't want that. But if for whatever reason your foot can't come off the pedal, I do recommend that you stiffen out and just lean forward. That way, if you do smack your back, your neck will be stiff and won't let the recoil happen where your head will smack the ground. So I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, you have to understand that it is a possibility. You wanna know going into this trick that that can happen. It's a very rare case, but it is possible. So now that we have the worst case scenario out of the way, let's get to the trick. So this trick, there's not a lot to it. It's all really practice and just getting the concept of your balance point. And the way we find that is through squatting. Now, the position you wanna find yourself in, and this varies depending on your height, your weight, and your dexterity. So just like how easy it is for you to move around on your bike. For me, I like to squat down and have my butt right over the back tire. It almost feels like you're gonna touch it. And honestly, if you get low enough, you will, and it will leave a gnarly burn, so don't do that, I don't recommend it. And this position, when you're squatting down, makes it easier for you to find the balance point. And that's where you find that the bike has the least resistance. So that means that your front tire is up high enough to where it almost feels like it's just stuck there because you're in the right position. Now, if you feel like the front tire is gonna drop down, so you bring down your butt a little further, or if you feel like you're going too far back, you essentially stand up a little bit more upright and that'll bring it back. And that's all it is. You're gonna be going back and forth between too high, too low, too high, too low. Now, where you put your tire is again up to you. Some people really like to have it really nice and low. Other people like to have it nice and high. I like to find it right in the middle because I do like to do a lot of variations in and out of manuals. For me, I like to keep the tire in a position where if I need to get up higher, it's already in a good position. But if I want to do like an ice pick, I'm not way too penciled and that'll make me loop out on the grind or going from the manual to the grind. Once you wrap your head around the balance point, squatting, getting upright, now the next is just to manifest it and make it happen. So what I recommend is finding a line somewhere either on the ground or finding a place where you want to pick up from. This parking lot isn't the best because it doesn't have actual marking, so you can't really measure your gaps. There is like a couple little smudges on the ground, so I'm going to use that. There's one right here. So once you figure out the point from where you're going to start your manual, your speed is going to have to depend on how far you're trying to get. anything balance related, the faster you go, the easier it is, but it's also scarier. There's bigger consequences because since you're going faster, your brain has to react a lot quicker in case you're gonna loop out. So I find that learning at a moderate speed, not too fast, not too slow, aka the Goldilocks zone, would be the best. So maybe if you're gonna only manual, let's say 6 to 10 feet, you're gonna want maybe 1 full crank, maybe 1.5. But enough of just rambling, let me show you. So let's say I'm gonna pick up right here. So I come around, I give myself a nice pedal around this glass, get a little bit of speed, find your point, and then find your balance. So as you can tell, my legs are doing all of the pumping. I will give you guys a little life hack. If you do have brakes, it does make it easier, but you do not need them at all. I do feather my brakes a little bit, but I can also accomplish 99% of the manuals without it. Every once in a while, I just kind of rely on them because they're there, which if you're eventually just gonna be a brakeless rider, you don't wanna get into that habit. But if you have them and you're learning, might as well use them. And we call it feathering, and all it is that when you feel you're gonna loop out, you just lightly tap the lever and it'll make your front end drop a little bit. If you slam on the brakes, then it'll drop it all the way. Now, if you don't have brakes, it doesn't matter because what you're doing is that if you feel like you're gonna loop out, you just stand up again. Does that make sense? Sorry, I had to explain that. Before you guys at home feel like your bike isn't complete because you don't have brakes, which it is. You should ride brakes, but that's just me. All right, again, let's find a spot, less glass, pick up your manual, and then again, just finding that sweet spot where your butt is right over the tire. I don't know when I go in and out of frame. Now, the first few ones, I noticed that a lot of people tend to just have their position all off and they just literally try to like lift the bike into their chest without being in the correct position. Now again, the correct position is to be squatted back. Then you wanna lift the bars close to your chest. Now you don't wanna pull them all the way back. You wanna have a nice area to where you're leaned back far enough to where your arms can push and pull as they need. And again, if you're gonna loop out, you stand up and that'll give you a little more leverage. Now, essentially, you should be doing the majority of the work with your legs. Your arms are there just to kind of slightly hold, and if you need to turn, then you can just like churn and lean a little bit with your shoulders as you wanna go further and around obstacles. But while we're focusing on the straight line, all you really wanna do is rely on your position. So that's your butt, your legs, your squat, your chest leaning back a little bit. You don't wanna be penciled up. You don't wanna be leaning far forward. You wanna be in that perfect position. If you're struggling, just go literally find a mirror at home, bump up your tire up against something, and just find this position where it looks like you can balance like I'm doing right here. If you're not in this position, you're probably somewhere around here or this, it's not gonna work. All right, so we're gonna get one good crank of speed. We're gonna lean back in position and then pull the bars towards us and then start the pumping. Now I'm trying to be dramatic with this. Damn, I almost went into that guy's Tesla. Again, if you wanna go a little further, just go a little faster. So we're gonna do a little more than a crank and a half now. And the faster I'll go, you'll notice that the less I really have to pump around with my legs. So this is gonna be about 2 pedals worth of speed. And you'll see that I'm almost completely locked in, like I don't have to pump very much. All right guys, again, the secret is in the squat. So once you get in that sweet spot, you're gone. You're just gonna be locked in. We kind of already went over the troubleshooting, but again, I'll explain it. But essentially, if you're having any troubles, it usually is in your position. Maybe you need to get your butt a little further back to really where it's about to touch that tire. And then once you can kind of lock in, you can start adjusting it to where you're not as far back, but you understand the concept of how far back you have to get and how your arms have to be in a slight bent position, not locked. You wanna have a little bit of area for both, for your knees and for your arms to be able to like adjust accordingly. Now, this isn't a trick you're gonna learn in the first 5 minutes. This could take days, weeks, maybe even months of trial and error. And the best thing to do is just practice over and over. Any excuse, find a little line, a smudge, a piece of art that you like on the ground, and just manual as far as you can. You'll notice that you'll have some friends that are a little better at it. Sometimes it's because they're taller, sometimes it's because they're shorter, sometimes because they're big. I know that some people like Phil Bra and a couple other dudes are very, very good at manualing. That just means that they have a better idea of weight shifting. And that's something that just takes time and practice. So once you can consistently lock into a manual, and that's where you can go a good, let's say, basketball court, or at least a half court, and you feel that you understand that balance point, that position you need to be in, and you just feel literally locked in. The next thing to try is to do bunny hop manuals. Now this is gonna be significantly more difficult than a manual on flat because when you hop, you're gonna have to find that balance point. Now, what works for me is as I bunny hop, what I do is I lean back a little bit more than I usually do when I bunny hop onto something. And then what I do is I use my feet almost like landing gear on a plane, and I push down and lock for a second, like basically lock my legs a little bit so that I know that I'm in that manual. Once I'm locked in, then I find that balance point and I adjust. Sometimes these things are a lot harder to understand, but they're easier to see. So let me show you. I'm gonna initially just hop up this curb once, like I would normally. Literally, as I hopped in, a bee hit me in the face. All right, let's try this again without the bee. You're gonna wanna hop up onto the curb like you would normally. And now you wanna go a little faster and lean a little back and then just plant the landing gear. So all I really did is, as I hopped up, I was in a very similar position to my normal bunny hop, except I leaned back a little bit, because again, you don't want to overdo this and loop out as you're hopping up and stuff. It's a little scary. And as you land, you put the landing gear down, you almost lock your legs for a second. You don't want to fully lock them. You want to push down to where they're almost fully locked out, and then you squat. So let me do another one. The whole key to this trick is that balance point. Find that position where your butt is right over the tire and being able to get in and out of it very easily. Once you're on an object and you want to like manual off, I'll show you how you can learn that. All you essentially have to do is pretend you're gonna just jump off a curb and do a little baby manual a few times. That's the same feeling as you're coming off from a regular manual. So let's hop on real quick. All right guys, keep in mind that anytime you're going slower, it's gonna be a lot harder because you have to battle gravity more. So keep that in mind when it's a little more difficult. Hop up, landing gear, manual off. Now, big no-no. If you have a cassette, never, we call it the bitch crank. Don't do that. Don't crank in the middle of the manual. That's a big no-no. Unless your life depends on it, you're gonna jump off this gigantic drop and you fear you're gonna drop. I'll show you what it looks like. Now again, if your life is in peril, fine. Bitch crank your way out of it. I'll show you what it looks like. But keep in mind, I have a free coaster currently, so there's slack. So it's a little more difficult when you have a free coaster and slack to do the bitch crank, but it also deters you from doing it and just learning how to really get that balance point. So, all right, I'm gonna show you what it looks like to bitch crank on a free coaster. It ain't gonna be pretty. I had to, because again, a free coaster has slack, I essentially had to take a back crank, make sure it engages and crank off. But it doesn't look good on a free coaster, on a cassette or anything. Unless you're about to die, then okay, do the bitch crank. Again, manuals are awesome. They're a very big staple in BMX. Everyone should know how to do them, and a lot of my pro friends are not very good at them. So maybe some of the tips I had in this tutorial can help you guys. It's all about that squat, find that balance point, find the right speed for you, and then just adjusting accordingly. Once you get really dialed, you can do a lot of cool things with them. You could hop in and out of grinds, up and off of stuff, link a lot of tricks together, just impress your friends because you could go down the biggest hills and manual them. And yeah, they're awesome. So I hope you guys got a lot out of this tutorial. And if you did, please go ahead and like that video, share it. That also helps a lot. And leave a little comment. Let me know you're still watching. I appreciate you guys. I'm out.